Welcome back to N's NotebookLM. So, when you hear the name Henry Ford, what comes to mind? Probably the assembly line, right? The Model T, a guy who basically put the entire world on wheels. But what if I told you that building cars, that was almost just a side effect of a much, much bigger idea? Today, we're going to dig into Ford's own words from his book, My Life and Work, to pull out the revolutionary business philosophy he truly believed could change everything.
This sentence right here, it gets to the absolute heart of Ford's entire worldview. For him, business wasn't some game of buying low and selling high. No, it was a mission to create something genuinely useful for people. Profit? Oh, that would come. But he saw it as the natural result of doing a great job, not the main goal.
And he really wasn't thinking small here. He believed these weren't just good ideas for making cars. He called it a universal code. He was absolutely convinced this was the natural way to do things, and he was going to prove it so completely that the whole world would have to agree.
So what's the first big principle of this universal code? Well, it all boils down to one powerful and, honestly, a surprisingly simple idea about what a business is actually for.
For Ford, the order of operations was crystal clear, non-negotiable. Service first, profit second. He argued that any business that's just about making money is, well, insecure. It's a touch-and-go affair, as he put it. But a business built on service, on making the best possible thing at the lowest possible cost, that kind of business builds its own foundation.
Now, this focus on service wasn't just some abstract concept for him. It was personal. He grew up on a farm, and he said his earliest memory was that there was just too much work on the place. That experience, that feeling of endless, back-breaking labor, is what drove him to create not some luxury toy for the rich, but a tough, simple tool that could help the masses. And this is where Ford basically declared war on the entire business model of his time. See, the rest of the industry thought the way to make money was to convince you that the perfectly good car you bought last year was now totally obsolete. Ford's idea was the exact opposite. Make one single, universal car and make it so incredibly well that a customer would never need to buy another one.
This was no rush job. He was obsessed with the idea that the product is everything. The factory, the sales plan, the financing, he believed all of that would just naturally fall into place around a truly great product. He spent more than a decade tinkering and testing before he finally felt the Model T was ready.
Okay, so he had the perfect product. Now, how do you build it cheap enough for everyone to afford? Well, this leads us to his most famous legacy, a relentless, obsessive, all-out war on every single kind of waste, especially wasted effort. You see, the real genius wasn't just the idea of moving the car down a line. It was breaking down every single task into its smallest possible piece. No worker had to take a step to get a part. No one had to bend over or switch tools. Every single motion was studied and optimized to be as efficient as humanly possible. Let me paint a picture for you of how this actually worked. The car chassis would just slide along at a steady 6 feet per minute. At the first station, guys would just fasten mudguard brackets. Later on, at station 10, the motor gets lowered right into place. And get this, the man who put in a bolt didn't put on the nut. That was the next guy's only job. By the time it got to the end, station 45, a finished car just drove right off the line. And the results of this obsession with efficiency were just mind-blowing. In their old plant, a single-cylinder casting had to travel 4,000 feet as it went from machine to machine. I mean, think of all that wasted time, all that wasted energy. By just rearranging the machines in a logical order, they slashed that distance down to just over 300 feet. That's a 90% reduction in wasted motion for just one part. Now, imagine multiplying that saving across the thousands of parts in a car. And here's what that meant for the people. Before this big cleanup, it took about 15 men to produce enough parts for one car in a day. Afterward, it took only 9. This wasn't about making people work harder. It was about getting rid of all the useless stuff that got in the way of the real work. But Ford's code was about so much more than just machines and efficiency. He totally understood that a business is, at its core, a collection of people. And in 1914, he made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the entire world. $5 a day. It is really hard to overstate how radical this was. It was more than double the average daily wage for an auto worker at the time, and at the same time, he cut the workday from 9 hours down to 8. But Ford was absolutely adamant. This was not charity. He actually saw it as one of the best cost-cutting moves they ever made. Think about it. By paying people a high wage, he got a stable, dedicated workforce. And just as important, he created a whole new class of customers. He was paying his own workers enough to buy the very cars they were building. So, what does this all add up to? When you combine all these ideas, service, efficiency, and investing in your people, you get the absolute core of Ford's universal code, an industrial creed that he really lived by. You can pretty much distill his whole philosophy into 4 key rules. Number 1, put service before profit. Always. 2, forget about the competition. Just focus on doing what you do better than anyone else. 3, manufacturing isn't about tricky markups. It's about efficiently turning raw materials into something valuable. And 4, don't gamble. Build your business on solid work, not on speculation. I mean, these principles literally built the 20th century. They created a new middle class, a new consumer society, and a new template for production that we still see the echoes of everywhere today. But it leaves us with a really challenging question for our own time, doesn't it? In an economy that so often seems built on financial speculation, planned obsolescence, and branding over substance, is there still room for Henry Ford's kind of radical, simple code? If this topic has captured your interest and you'd like to dive deeper, the book is called My Life and Work by Henry Ford.